Hi everybody, welcome. So today I'm going to be working on this, there's like an attached room in my garage. So let me just kind of show you. So here you can see my garage. I have this kind of door in the back. This room was created, I don't think, it was here when we moved in. And I'm fairly certain that it's not permitted, potentially. So it's kind of a small room, and Eric uses it. So Eric's got a workbench. I use this for like shipping supplies and also equipment that's for work ends up sitting there. And we also, we do some supply storage, which is here on the back wall. So everything on the top shelf is mine. Krenzla, Mercedes-Benz, Pentosin, Liqui-Moly. Everything on the middle shelf is Tax, so that's all stuff for the Miata or the Mazda 3, mostly the Miata. And then this toolbox is Tax, and that workbench is Eric's. And normally Tax toolbox sits here. All right, so today I'm working on the floor. You can see the Swisstrax tiles below me. So these are Swisstrax Ribtrax Smooth Pro. They're the same tiles that I have in my garage. I've done a couple videos on them, talked about them here and there. But I thought today I would answer the question, if I don't have a table saw, how do I cut these? So I'll tell you how I'm doing it. So if you're not familiar with these tiles, they basically, if you look at the back of them, there are two sides that are flat. So we've got a flat side here and a flat side here, and on those flat sides there are pins. So there's a pin there you can see right underneath my finger. And then on the other two sides there are these like loops. So they call them a pegged side and a loop side. So these snap together kind of like a Lego would. They just kind of go in and snap in place like that, and then you end up with a tile that's snapped together. So when you're doing full tiles, they actually go in very quickly. I did this entire floor in about an hour. So you just take this, and basically what you want to do is you've got a flat side, two loop sides. So you want to do the flat sides in a corner. So that was like my solid corner. This wall is the most flat and that wall is the most flat. So I started with a corner piece in that corner. And then I've just kind of built out, you know, the pieces just kind of snap in and go together. So here's one, and that's in. And then, you know, this one, same thing. So then when you get to these sides, you end up having to do cuts. And the cuts are out of full pieces. And that is like one of the negatives about Swisstrax is that when you're cutting the ends, you end up with a fair amount of waste. And the reason for that is because there are two peg sides and two flat sides. So like you're going down this wall, I need a bunch of diagonal cuts like this, which means this is the piece that's usable and this is the piece that's thrown away every single time. So I end up with like these little pockets, and I can't use this triangle for that. I mean, I guess I could cut the tabs off and I could potentially try to stick them in there in some janky fashion, but the real answer is that you buy a full tile and you cut it off here and you only end up using this piece. Now, on the bright side, you don't end up with many of them in a room of this size. You know, this room's like 10 by 15. I'm gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 small pieces like that where I'm throwing away a majority of the tile. But other than that, it's not that bad. So what I want to do, we'll just mark and cut one of these. So if we take a look at this, I've got peg side, so I need flat side like this. And this is going to go in here like that, right? So what you want to do is you want to measure off of the tile here. So I've got about 8 3/4. And then I want to measure off of this corner, and I've got about 9 3/4. So we're here, we've got 8 3/4, mark that side, 9 3/4 over here, mark that side, and then we can just use a straight edge like this to make a line across that. So there we have our line. So basically I'm going to cut this piece off here, and this is the piece that I'm going to use to snap it in. And you know, measure twice, cut once, just don't waste a bunch of tile, but that's basically what we're looking at. My 9 3/4, my 8 3/4, and that's where they intersect. Now, when I did my main floor in my garage, my 3-car garage, I ended up with like 50 tiles that I needed to cut in some fashion. Sometimes it's just a very small amount, sometimes it was a larger amount, but I had to cut about 50 tiles. So what I did there, I don't own a table saw, mostly because I don't have the room for it. I just don't have space and I don't want to stick it in my storage unit. So what I did last time was I looked into renting a table saw. And Home Depot will rent table saws. They're about, I think it's like $44 for 4 hours, and then it's like $60 for 24 hours for 1 day. So then I looked at Craigslist to see if there were any used ones around me, and there weren't really any unless they were giant and they were super expensive. So I ended up going to Harbor Freight, and I bought a table saw, as an Admiral table saw, like the cheapest one that they sell. And it's $149, but it regularly goes on sale for $129, so it's $130 for a table saw. And you end up needing a blade for it, so that's like another 20 bucks. So you're into the thing for like 150 plus tax, about 160 out the door. So I bought that table saw, I brought it home, I used it to do my entire floor, and then when I was done, I took it and I put it on Craigslist, and I sold it for 125. And I'd only used it for a week, so some guy got an awesome table saw and he got a good deal on it with a blade, and he saved about 35 bucks. But it only cost me 35 bucks to use this table saw, and like I said, I had it for about a week and a half, something like that, while I was doing all of these cuts, because I was kind of doing them after work. Okay, so in this case, I only have to make a couple of these cuts. So I'm outside, this is like a walkway to the backyard. So I've got a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that I've laid down. And I'm using a circular saw. It's just a Milwaukee 6.5 inch circular saw. It's their M18. It's not even the fuel version. It's a 2630-20. And I have in it a Diablo. This is an aluminum blade. And that sounds stupid, but the blade is actually aluminum, and it's like aluminum, vinyl, and plastic is what it's made for. But it's a 54 tooth aluminum blade. So what I've been doing is I take this, and because my blade is on this side, I am setting the saw here, and I am just cutting through the tile into the wood. I've got the blade depth set at 3/4 of an inch. These are 3/4 inch tiles, and I'm just very lightly scoring the plywood below me. And this is actually working really well. So we'll take this. And we've removed our piece. All right, so we can see our piece that we cut off, took the line off, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this and we're gonna snap it in. Over here I have a little bit of overhang on the wall, so I'm actually tucking this under the wall, which I measured for and accounted for in my measurement. So I'm trying to make these as tight as I can. And there we go, snapped into place. Nice and easy. So now I have to do this triangle, and we'll get this piece dealt with, as well as this piece here. And this is kind of what I was talking about. Like, I cut off this triangle, which is almost exactly what I need for this, but it doesn't fit that need. It doesn't have the right ends on the right ends. So you end up having to buy a full tile to only use this quarter, or leaving them open, or doing something janky. So anyway, so we're gonna go through and we're gonna get the rest of the cuts done. And we're gonna cut out with this Milwaukee jigsaw. This is the M12 version. I like this thing a lot, but I don't use it very often, honestly. I'm using a Bosch blade. It's a Bosch Progressor for metal, which leaves a really nice finish. And generally, if you just do it over something like a trash can or a bucket or something like that, it's probably the easiest way for a saw like this. So we'll just cut this out. Okay, and you can see the finished one right there. Now, you may be asking, what are we going to do with this edge? We'll talk about that next. Let me just get this one last tile here cut. So if you take a look down this wall, what you'll see is there's a gap. And this gap is like 2 inches. And again, talking about the tiles, not wasting money, you know, those types of things. The best way to deal with that is to buy edges. So these are edges. They come in again, a loop side and a peg side, so they can go, you know, against either side of the tile. And these are like $3, where a full tile is like $8. So buying these helps you to not have to deal with throwing away a large portion of a tile. And you can just cut these and they snap into place. They don't have like side snaps. They just kind of go in, go in, go in. So I bought these for that entire wall. So I can just cut these down and I can make them whatever length I need them to be. So here we have a cut piece. This is a pegged edge. And we can take this and we can snap this into place. Right here is where I cut it for. And there we are. So pretty easy to do. It takes a little bit of time. These cuts take more time than literally anything else. You could put this entire floor in an hour and then spend another 2 hours on the cuts. But if you don't have a table saw, you can get by it with other things. My recommendation is to just measure twice, cut once, be careful how you're cutting things. And also, like, if you've got, like, you see how this tapers from large to small? Well, I should start at that end with the large pieces. That way, if I accidentally cut one too small, I can just kind of shift it down and continue to be able to use it. So just doing creative things like that will allow you to, you know, kind of get done with less mess or less waste. And everybody, you know, when we're talking about cost, the cost of the stuff is expensive. I'm not denying that. So the less waste that you can have, the better. Here's something that you could potentially do. So over here, I have a loop. So I need a peg, but I just need a little triangle. And I have a couple tiles out there that are pegs on one side and loops on the other. If you cut the loops off flush, like I did right here on this tile, you can actually just have the pegs on one side. You can snap that in, and if it's an edge like this, you'd probably never ever notice it. They even make clips that can go from here to the other tile and connect the two together. They're like a metal clip, and Obsessed Garage sells them. So in order to make these two connect, I have to remove the loops from this other tile, but I can do that and this will get me another piece that's complete. You can remove these with a saw like I did outside, or if you want, you could just use a knife, because they are like a vinyl product. And then we can take this and we can snap it into place. And that'll save us like $8 over buying a tile for the edge. And now I can put my compressor back there. All right, so here you can see the finished product. So we have our tiles in, we did our edges. So you can see the black edges. These are the pegged edges because the tiles have loops on that side. And then there are a couple looped edges right here at the doorway. Some of these tiles were tiles that were damaged in my main garage, like this is from a jack stand. So, you know, I just kind of moved them over here, replaced a couple tiles in the regular garage. And then eventually I just decided to add a handful of these to every single order that I placed from Obsessed Garage until I got to the point that the whole room was done. But you can see kind of how that looks. It's tucked in behind the wall there, or underneath the wall, and you end up with a really nice finished edge. And then these are very good at hiding dirt, hiding whatever. And I also happen to have a problem with this room where that threshold where the doorway is, this goes outside. You can see like there's my shed in my backyard. So the drainage is such that the water pools in the corner here, kind of, where the hose goes through. And we end up with water on this floor. So if I had cardboard boxes that were sitting on the floor, they would get wet. But the Swisstrax is high enough that I don't end up with any of that problem anymore. I get like 1/4 of an inch of water. It stays underneath the tiles. Even when there's torrential downpours, everything is pretty good. So this year, I think you're going to see a lot of changes in this room. I'm going to paint the walls to match the rest of the garage. You can see my old lighting is in here. And I'm also going to, I'm going to look into a lever rack to replace this, to get rid of all of this stuff and put a lever rack in, have some shipping stuff, but also some things that are like storage, nuts and bolts, fittings, and different things like that. So we'll see what we end up with. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hopefully this helps somebody with Swisstrax, and have a great day.